I have never posted anything like this before. I am not the kind of person who shares things on the internet, but I have been carrying something for almost 30 years, and I cannot do it alone anymore. In 1996, I was working as a contractor in the high desert of eastern Oregon, mostly repair work. Cabins, fire towers, old ranger stations. The kind of jobs nobody else wanted because they were too far from anywhere and paid next to nothing. In October, I got a call from a park service office asking if I could spend 2 weeks repairing a ranger station deep in the mountains. They said the place had been abandoned since the late 70s. Nobody told me why. The station was about 40 miles from the nearest paved road. No power, no phone line, just a dirt track through pine forest and canyon country. The building was worse than they described. Half the roof had collapsed. The walls were black with mold. Rat nests were in everything. The place felt wrong from the moment I stepped inside. Not haunted. I do not believe in that. Just heavy. Like the air had not moved in a very long time. On the third day, I was pulling rotten shelving out of the station office. Behind the shelves, I found a door. It was narrow, set into the wall like it was built with the station and then covered up later. The hinges were rusted shut. I had to use a crowbar. Behind the door was a small room. No bigger than a pantry. No windows. It had concrete walls, which was strange because the rest of the station was timber frame. Someone had built this room differently on purpose. There was a metal desk, a broken chair, and on the floor, a wooden box. The box had no label and no lock. It was heavy. Inside were dozens of file folders. Some were typed on official Park Service letterheads. Some were handwritten on notebook paper. Some were just scraps folded and tucked in. The oldest file was dated 1931. The newest was from 1982. Over 50 years of reports, all hidden in the same room, all passed down from one head ranger to the next. And every single folder had the same stamp across the front in red ink and block letters, D.O. not file. I did not read them all that night. I read 5 or 6, sitting on the floor with a work lamp plugged into my generator. 5 or 6 was enough. They were incident reports that somebody had decided should not exist. Disappearances. Hikers, campers, hunters, families. People who walked into the backcountry and did not come back, or who came back wrong. They were found miles from where they should have been, confused, injured, and unable to explain what happened. The details kept repeating. Camps were found intact. Gear was untouched. And the boots. Always the boots. They were left behind in the tent or beside the bedroll, placed neatly. It was like the person had taken them off, set them down, and walked into the dark barefoot. It happened not once, not twice, but across decades and across different parks. Different rangers wrote the reports years apart, none of them knowing the others had seen the same thing. But someone knew. Someone collected these files, hid them behind a wall, and stamped every one of them with the same words. I should have put the box back. I should have sealed the room and driven home. Instead, I loaded the box into my truck. Something happened on my last morning at that station. I woke up early, maybe at 5:30. I stepped outside and looked down at the ground in front of the door. The dirt was soft. I had been tracking my own boot prints in and out for days. I knew what my prints looked like. These were not mine. They were bare feet. Bare footprints started about 10 feet from the front door. They were not coming toward the station. They were leading away, toward the tree line at the edge of the clearing. They crossed the clearing in a straight line and disappeared into the trees. There were no prints coming back. I was 40 miles from the nearest road. I had not seen another person in 4 days. I finished the job, though I did not sleep well. And when I drove out, the box was in the back of my truck. I never handed it over. I never told anyone what I found. Not until now. I have carried this box for almost 30 years. I have gone back to it dozens of times. I have read more of the files and compared them. I found patterns that span decades and stretch across the entire country. The boots, the distances that do not make sense, the caves that nobody wants to talk about, and the people who tried to report what they saw and were quietly moved aside. People are still going missing. Every year. The same way. In the same kinds of places. I have started recording myself reading through these files. All of them. In order. I need there to be a record that cannot be stamped and buried. You can find the recordings. I do not know if anyone will listen, but they are there. I will change the names, the locations, and the dates. Some of the people in these files still have families, but the stories themselves stay, because somebody should know. These are the buried archives. My parents have a strenuous relationship, to say the very least. My father has been a hardcore Christian since he himself was a child. Sunday school, daily Bible study, that whole thing. He actually met my mother at his Christian school. She had transferred there after being expelled from her previous academy for nearly weekly fights, and my father's school was the only one that would take her. According to him, though, she didn't show even an ounce of disrespect or rebellion during her time there. No fights, no hooky, hell. Apparently she wouldn't even curse on school grounds. They met in his chemistry class. She sat in the front row directly beside him, and I guess close proximity created affection between them. Thank God for science, right? She kept up the whole innocent schoolgirl routine all the way up through graduation. From there, the two of them married not even a full month after the ceremony, then boom, they have a me. I think that's where the strain really started. A child in your teens is not something that relaxes you, obviously. Father actually had to take up another job just to support us. What did mother do? She stayed home all day and watched over me. Well, I say watched over me. Really, all I remember from those days is her getting lost inside her books. The books she read looked ancient, almost leather-bound, wrinkled yellow pages, and no matter how often she read them, they seemed to always be covered in dust. Now, being the 5-year-old I was, I had no idea what she was doing. All I knew was that mother liked to read a lot. It wasn't until I hit 12 that my curiosity bubbled over and caused me to actually look at what she had been reading. She kept most of them hidden, locked away in her closet, and stuffed behind her clothes. It was almost fate that I stumbled upon them that day. It was late November, and of course, I just had to know what my gifts were going to be that year. Where better to check than the closet, right? I was disappointed when I found nothing but clothes and the scent of mothballs, but something told me to dig deeper, that I'd find exactly what I wanted if I just kept looking. That's when I found them. Books on black magic, demonology, witchcraft, all manner of darkness. The air around me felt thick and heavy, like I was being watched, but I couldn't see by whom. As I stared at the books, still a little confused as to what I was even looking at, my heart fell into my stomach at the sound of the bedroom door opening. I clumsily hid away behind some of the clothes, and by some miracle of God, Mother didn't see me when she stepped into the closet. She must have been blinded by her need for the books, because her hand literally grazed my shoulder as she reached down to grab one. She shut the closet door behind her, leaving me alone in darkness as I waited. I could feel my heart beating out of my chest, and all I could do was wait for the perfect moment to escape. As I waited, Mother started to read aloud from the book. Her words made no sense to me, but I could feel the evil in her words as she read. It sounded like gibberish, a language that was completely incomprehensible to me, but she was chanting it like she'd done this 1,000 times. Suddenly, the light on the other side of the door began to glow brighter and brighter. The room shook, and with each passing second, the entire house got louder and louder with what sounded like thunder. Mother kept chanting, repeating the same foreign phrase over and over again. Through the noise, through the blinding light, she just kept chanting. On a dime, all of the noise stopped. The light on the other side of the door reached a peak before dying out entirely. For a moment, there was silence, deep, uncomfortable silence, until a new voice spoke, the unmistakable voice of a man. "This is the 3rd time today," the man spoke. I could feel the bass of his voice in my chest as he continued. "Sooner or later, your husband's gonna catch on." "That idiot?" my mother replied. "He's too busy working to even notice that his son looks nothing like him. Now, are we gonna do this or not?" I heard the sound of clothes hitting the floor before my parents' bed began to rattle violently. Faster, and faster, and faster, before slowing down to a soft, methodical rock and then dying down completely as the smell of sulfur filled the room. "Wow," gasped my mother. "No wonder they call you the prince." "Oh, don't you worry, honey," responded the man. "Once that son of ours is 18, he'll be the prince, and you and I will rule for eternity." Yeah, I know. Gotta have an heir before you're king. The rules down there are all so confusing. Anyway, you should go. We were so loud he's probably gonna come in here at any moment. Fine. With another flash of light and a whir of thunder, the room fell silent once again. I remained hidden in that closet for what felt like an eternity before my mother finally went off into the house to look for me. As sneaky as could be, I made my way to the bathroom where I pretended to be sick so as not to draw suspicion. I never told father about what I heard, what I saw. I just kept living like everything was normal. However, I'm writing this now because my 18th birthday is in 1 week, and I have no idea what's in store for the party. The manner in which he carried himself spoke of confidence. Listening to his voice was akin to a running river at sunset, hypnotic and memorable. Clearly, his etiquette charmed and delighted me on the first eve of our meeting in the shadowed gardens of Orvet. The last moment I knew him, however, he was far less the charming, well-spoken gentleman he had presented himself as. I can still feel the unmistakable pain of my heart shattering. The emotion encompassed my being as the first blow connected to my head. Much to the shock of Valerius, I did not fall. I simply smiled sadly, masking my crushed spirit. His face betrayed the fear he meant to remain hidden as my jaw unclenched and my pearly white canines connected to the flesh of his neck. I refused to cast even a glance at his prone figure as I departed the velvet halls of Everil. The tears slid down my face, mingling with the warm, red liquid of his life force. Very quickly after that experience, I learned to distrust the charming mannerisms of human beings. Never again shall I fall for a foolish ruse such as that. I will continue my life throughout the centuries, invoking my own form of justice upon those whom I deem worthy of my insatiable vengeance. This world requires a cleansing that cannot be brought about without inflicting the retribution this earth deserves. Every town has its mysteries, a kind of darkness the citizens would rather keep locked away from outsiders. I am the opposite. I love exposing the inner darkness of everyday life and bringing it to the surface. It is why I joined the local true crime club in my town of Orem. It is called the Enigma Vault. The members gather to talk about favorite crime cases that do not get much media coverage. We also discuss the occasional conspiracy theory and potential cryptid sighting. I guess you could say we are just a bunch of horror-obsessed geeks looking for our next thrill. Some would say what we are doing is messed up, but you need something to make you feel alive when you live in a boring city like this one. At least, I used to think it was boring. There is this strange daycare in Orem called Little Sprouts Academy. It has been here for decades, but nobody remembers seeing anyone enter or leave it. You cannot even hear the sounds of children playing when you walk by. The building is painted a garish shade of green with bright yellow window frames and purple doors. All the windows are covered so you cannot see anything inside. Everything about the place is incredibly sketchy. It is a total enigma that nobody has a read on. One day I chatted with a post office worker to see what he thought, and he said something that stuck with me. He has delivered mail there a few times, and apparently there really are children inside. The weird thing is that it is always nap time whenever he arrives. Mail carriers can have hectic schedules, so he has been at Little Sprouts Academy at several different hours of the day, but the children are always fast asleep no matter what time it is. It does not matter if it is early in the morning or later in the afternoon, those kids are knocked out. Curiosity was making me go crazy with all kinds of different possibilities. What if all those conspiracy theories were true and those children were being experimented on? I talked it over with my club, and they agreed that something was off. Little Sprouts Academy was shaping up to be the perfect topic for our next podcast. Another member and I stood outside the daycare late at night, wearing black clothes and balaclavas. The mission was to break inside and record everything we found. I know. Breaking into a building because of rumors is totally dumb and reckless. Most of the club members are not normal people. We are so bored with our mundane daily lives that we search for adventure wherever we can. Sometimes that means stepping face first into danger. I am obsessed with solving mysteries, so when a huge enigma like this exists in my own city, you bet I'm going to crack the case. Some say Little Sprouts Academy is a human trafficking ring. Others swear it is a secret government base. I did not know what to think, so I went searching for the truth. My partner used a lockpick kit to get us inside while I used my phone's flashlight to navigate. Compared to the outside, the interior was barren and sterile. It was immaculately clean, like a hospital. There were none of the colorful drawings or posters you would expect from a daycare. We walked into what seemed to be an office area. There were tons of these strange files about the children. Each one described their psychic potential and how well they performed on aptitude tests. Students with low potential were disposed of, and some even had mental breakdowns and were moved to other facilities. The students with high potential were called ascended beings and considered prime candidates for the harvest. We were seriously beginning to freak out. The psychic experiment theories were true, but it was far bigger than what we could imagine. Our cameras captured everything. There was proof of it. I then heard a low groan coming from a door to my left. I opened it, and it revealed a long flight of descending stairs. It must have been the basement. A strong wave of a horrendous odor attacked my nostrils. It smelled inhuman. The stench was terrible enough to make bile rise to the back of my throat. Then I heard it. A voice coming from deep within the basement. "Help us. Let us out. Please give us a second chance. We will pass the test this time. I miss my parents." The voice was barely above a whisper, but it sounded like it belonged to a child. We booked it out of there and made an anonymous call to the police. We hid in the shadows at a safe distance as squad cars rolled up to the scene. Officers entered the building, and when they came out, there were no children with them. They just left them there. I know for a fact I heard a child call out to me. Nothing came of that encounter. The police have done nothing to investigate Little Sprouts Academy, no matter how many of us call them. Those bastards must be accomplices or something. The daycare is still up and running like normal. I still think about those children to this day and what exactly is being done to them. I am thinking of going back there soon with the entire club to see if we can rescue them. There is more to this story waiting to be told. It started when my father decided to pack us up and move us to his hometown out in the coastal valley, where every neighbor was about a mile away, separated by thickets of wild scrub. We moved into my father's family home around harvest season, so the salt air was in full swing. At least that's what my father says. We were a small family, me, my brother, and my father. Our mother passed when I was about 3. Father would always say, Mother hated the valley, and she always wanted a more lavish life. Maybe that's why he waited so long to move us, deciding how he wanted us to grow up, torn between societal norms and the memory of a simpler existence. It's hard for me to say, looking back now. He spent a lot of time preparing us for this move, or so he says. I feel like he just needed more time with the house before leaving. I can't really imagine how hard our mother's passing was on him. He never really talks about it. My father was a keep-it-in type of man. He had a lean frame covered with tattoos that represented a life we could never know. We pulled into the driveway, hearing the gravel crack and shoot under the tires. I remember looking around at all the junk in the overgrown grass, trucks, cars, old broken-down fishing gear, and a big winch with smashed-out windows. We pulled up to the house, and a man walked out, waving his arms in a kind gesture, with a big smile on his face. He was an older man, but fit, wearing heavy canvas overalls and a dirty ball cap with big, piercing blue eyes. The same eyes my father had. He was a very tall man, his head almost touching the roof of the collapsed shed he was standing in. I watched my father's eyes light up. We got out of the car, and my father introduced us to our grandfather. I never really knew we had one still alive. Father occasionally would talk about mother's family, but never his own, and I never felt the need to ask. When he mentioned his family home, I thought he was the last on his side, but I guess I was wrong. The man bent down to my little brother after the greeting and asked his name. My brother looked up to the tall man with a toothy smile. "Nugre, sir?" practically hopping with glee. My brother loved saying his name. He always did. Father would get him so hyped up after taking him and me to the shooting range. My brother and father loved guns, everything about them. My brother would sit making pop sounds every time our father would shoot his 12 gauge at clay pigeons. Father would always remark how much our mother hated it, but it was a part of who he was, so she let it be. I could never really get into guns. They hurt my ears too much, and the kick would knock me on my ass. My brother would always call me a pussy. Even though he was smaller than me, he definitely had bigger balls, as father would say. The man smiled and scruffled his hair. "I can definitely tell who named you." He looked over to father with an approving look, then back to Nugri. "I'm your grandfather. You can call me that or you can call me Yarg. Either works for me." My brother nodded his head and smiled. Yarg then walked over to me, leaning down, asking for my name. "Aukru." Yarg smiled. "I can tell who named you." He looked back to the house. "Well, we should probably get your bags out of the car and show you to your room." We headed to the entrance of the house, bags in hand. This house was very old, starting to wither with gray, salt-weathered siding, mold-covered wooden bones, and shingles falling off the roof. We stepped into the house, the smell of old damp earth and wet fur hitting our noses. A smaller dog ran out from the living room, jumping up at me and my brother, licking wildly, barking excitedly, and whining. "Get down, Misa," Yarg said. He patted the dog, trying to calm her. She was a dark brown collie mix with green eyes and a deep scar on her upper eyebrow. We never had a dog, so I remember being excited to have one around. She followed my brother and me through the house. Yarg walked us up the stairs, showing us a room with bunk beds. "This was your father's room." It was a very 1990s style room with band posters and old shirts pinned to the walls. I looked at the bunk beds and found it a little weird. Why would there be bunk beds? It wasn't like they were new or anything. They looked worn, like someone used to sleep in both of them. Then I thought to myself, did father have any siblings? Like I said, he never talked about his family, so I never really knew. I looked up to Yarg and asked, "Why are there bunk beds? I thought our father didn't have any siblings?" Yarg opened his mouth with what I thought looked like hesitation. Then our father entered the room. Yarg stopped. "What do you think?" he said, gesturing to the small room with open arms. "Well, it's very you," I said. My little brother ran to the top bunk, walking around on it with his knees, checking the comfort level. "I love it," he said. "Good, it brings me back to childhood, so I'm glad I get to share that with my boys now." He patted us both on the head and walked out of the room with Yarg, discussing something in lower voices. Later that night, I awoke sweaty and overheating, that moldy smell stinging my nose. I sat up and called to my brother quietly to see how he was making out. Nougar? Not even a peep. The drive really must have knocked him out. I thought to myself. I swung my legs out of bed, touching the surprisingly cold hardwood floor. I decided to rummage around a little bit. I walked around quietly in the room, looking at the old posters. I got closer to one, noticing what looked like a bump in it. I pushed the bump, and it flexed like it was hollow on the other side. I removed one of the pins in the poster and peeled it up to see a hole about the width of a softball. I reached my arm in, and my hand touched something metallic. I grabbed on and pulled it out. It was an old baseball card tin. It was rusty and damp. I walked over to my bed and sat down, cracking the tin open with a bit of effort. The first thing I noticed was a couple of photos of my mother and father when they were younger, happy, sitting side by side. My mother had dirty brown hair with green eyes, very tan skin, and a big smile. She was wearing what looked to be my father's jacket, the one I would always see in the closet at our old house. I laid it on the bed. The next items I saw were old photos. They had that browning on the edges. Old photos get when they are left too long. I put the tin down and pulled out the small stack of photos. The first few were ruined. I could only really make out shapes. But in the first photo that was in good shape, there were two boys not much older than my brother and I. Both boys looked just like my father, but one had thick black hair. They were smiling, sitting in what looked like this house's living room, but when it saw better days. Then it dawned on me that one boy was unmistakably my father. But who was the other boy? A brother? My father never mentioned a brother, not even once. That rubbed me the wrong way. If we had an uncle, why did he never talk about him? Why have we never met him before? I put the photo down and pulled out another. It was father, older than before, with his trademark tattoos and a drink in his hand. I'm not sure where this took place, but it looked like the port city with bright lights and buildings all in the background. There were lots of people in the background wearing thick, heavy leather jackets like the one father had, looking like they were celebrating something. A club of some sort, I thought to myself. Our father hated the city and never mentioned being in any club. I looked again to his left. There was the same boy, grown up now, with his arm wrapped around my father, his thick black hair down to his shoulders, smiling a big toothy grin. That's when I noticed two things I found a little odd. That man had two sharp, what looked like some sort of metal tooth implants on two teeth each side. He looked to be showing them off. He also had the same tattoo as father, the one that would always give me nightmares, and which father said mother always hated. It was of a grim reaper with its dark black hood, deathly pale skin, holding two thick, long, heavy chains. At the end of each chain were these massive, monstrous wolves, drooling with their teeth bared, ready to attack whatever was in front of them. I remember asking father about it when I was younger. He said they were hellhounds. Eventually, I asked him what it meant. He paused for a bit, then told me the Grim Reaper is the bringer of death, but the hounds are his executors. That always rubbed me the wrong way. I know my father doesn't tell us much. I'm starting to think there is a reason. Maybe I didn't need the full answer yet. I set the pictures back into the tin and closed the lid. I walked over to the hole when I heard something. I'll never forget the sound. I felt it deep in my bones. It made every cell in my body fire all at once. I felt my blood run cold, my hair stand up. A deep, loud howl. It was too low to be a coyote, too deep to be a dog. It was like nothing I've ever heard before. I slowly walked over to the window and looked out. All I saw was pitch black. I opened the window to try and get a better look. It was quiet, too quiet for a valley night, I thought. Then I heard it. Something moving slowly, breathing low, deep breaths. It sounded like it was low to the ground, just out of my sight. I put my head out a little more, trying to see what it was. Slowly, from around the shed, something started to poke out one by one. I watched what looked like big, long fingers start to wrap around the corner of the shed, something very big trying to stay unseen. One finger, two, three, until its whole hand wrapped around the shed wall. The fingers had sharp, jagged nails that shone in the moonlight. I saw the muscles on the hand start to tense like it was pulling itself around the corner. I was frozen. I could not look away. Akru? I jumped and looked back. It was Nugri, sitting up on his top bunk, looking down at me. "What are you doing?" He rubbed his eyes. I looked back, and the hand was gone. Just opening a window, go back to sleep. The next couple of weeks around the farm were not too eventful. A lot of it was us getting settled in, our father adjusting to helping around the farm, me and my brother filling our days with bike riding, movies, or sitting on the tractor with Yarg or father when he would feed the cows or do tasks around the property. I still remember the smell of the silage, the sweet, corny, earthy smell. Whenever Yarg would scoop it into the bucket, watching us cover our noses, laughing at how sensitive his grandsons were. I look back at those memories fondly. I would follow my little brother around with his pellet gun like we were both hunters. I've never been good at that, but he was. He would go to the back pond and shoot frogs, me pointing, him shooting, him shooting. He was a really good shot for his age, everyone I pointed at. He would hit right between the eyes. Looking back, that was pretty cruel. Probably why Father eventually told us we had to eat it if we killed it, which put an end to that. I brought up what I saw to Yarg a few times, but he would always brush it off, saying it was in my head or it was probably a coyote or something. But I haven't heard one since I've been here, and I haven't heard that howling again either. But I couldn't shake the feeling that he and my father were hiding something. The first time I told him about it, I heard him talking to my father about something that night. They were trying to be really quiet, which I found odd, but I guess they usually go quiet when they talk about important things. Later that same week, my brother and I decided to bike into town for the first time, to get some snacks and drinks from the corner store with some money that Father gave to us. When we got to town, it felt, well, quiet. The town was pretty empty and old. A lot of the houses looked empty or unlived in. Not a ghost town, but that in-between state, like when a town is on its way out. We went into the store and got our drinks and snacks and put them onto the counter, ringing the little bell. A man came from the back. He was an older man with a bald spot on his head and a sparse beard. He greeted us with a smile, asking the usual things adults do to kids. Until the topic of where we were from came up. I haven't seen you boys around here before. Whereabouts are you from? We told him how we were new to town, how we were living with our grandfather on the farm just a little ways away. What's your grandfather's name? He was bagging up our drinks with shaking hands, about to put the last bottle in. Yarg. The man dropped the bottle on the floor with a wet thud. There was a pause for a moment. Oh, well, I didn't know he still had a son left. A son left? I asked. Well, there was a... How do I put this? Well, angry people a couple of years ago claiming things, he said. Angry people? Angry at Yarg? He paused. No, well, not at Yarg. At what his father brought to this town. What did his father bring to the town? Well, what my father told me, Yarg's daddy was married to a witch. I scratched my head and squinted. Nugri chuckled a bit. A witch? Like in the movies? No, not quite. Well, what do you mean? The man went on. My daddy told me that she was a beautiful woman who lived in the forest near your grandfather's farm. Your great-grandfather would visit every day, hoping for her hand. Eventually, he got what he wanted, but it wasn't enough for him. She couldn't give him children. So your great-grandfather married someone else, breaking her heart, so she cursed him. What he told me was, all the children he bears and all the children his bloodline bears will be marked. Marked? What does that mean? I asked. Well, I'm not too sure, but all I know is that a lot of animals were going missing. Eventually, a couple of kids started to go missing too, so the town took it upon themselves to deal with the problem. But when they came back, there were much fewer of them than when they started. None wanted to talk about what happened. They were scared to ever go back. I thought they dealt with whatever it was they saw, but something tells me that it was too much for them to handle. The town was never the same. After that, people went missing or left. That's about all there is to it. What was it? We asked. Well, boys, I believe that's for you to find out, but these could just all be stories. Don't believe everything an old man says. Now you boys should get going. He held the bag out with a half smile. We left the store and I heard the door lock behind us. My brother and I both looked at each other, confused. I don't know what to make of all that. I remember being puzzled, but something about the man made me feel like he wasn't lying. He's full of crap. Sounds like some sort of fantasy to me, Nuger said. Yeah, you're probably right. We both got on our bikes and headed home. An eraser pinged off my head for the 5th time in 2 minutes. I could practically feel the steam wafting from my ears. I took a deep breath, praying that Honeyj Nalrarg, or Honeyj Garbage as I like to call him, would get bored eventually and find something else to pass the time. But then another chunk of eraser bounced off my temple. One more time, you fucking douchebag. One more time, and I'll... A mechanical pencil smacked the back of my skull. I lost it. I turned to Honeyj Garbage, my face as red as a fire engine. All right, look here, you stupid shit. I have had enough of your crap. My mouth fell open. All eyes were on Honeyj. A thick tension had overtaken the lecture hall. The only noise over the deafening silence was the sound of Honeyj desperately gasping for air. He clawed at his throat, his eyes bulging as if some invisible hand had a stranglehold on his neck. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and neither could my classmates. "All right, Honeyj, it's time to stop messing around. Keep it up, and I'll send you to the dean's office," Mr. Rierpa said, arms crossed. But he didn't stop. If this was a performance, then Honeyj had some serious acting chops. But as we would soon find out, Honeyj wasn't a talented actor. Mr. Rierpa didn't believe it until Honeyj was lifted 3 feet into the air. A collective gasp escaped from my classmates as the boy floated above us. I continued to look on helplessly as Honeyj's face turned blue. Eventually, I turned away. I couldn't stomach it any longer. I absolutely despised the guy. But he didn't deserve that. I heard Honeyj's body hit the ground with a sickening thump. His eyes remained unblinking, and he had blood around his mouth. I felt sick. My classmates gathered around, and Mr. Rierpa pushed through the crowd. He felt for a pulse, but found none and started CPR. "Someone call 911 and get the AED," he shouted. Students scattered, trying to make themselves useful. It was then, amid the chaos, that my eyes landed on the nerdy student who sat at the back of the room. He shot me a wink. My heart dropped as he mouthed the words, "You're welcome." My parents have a strenuous relationship, to say the very least. My father has been a hardcore Christian since he himself was a child. Sunday school, daily Bible study, that whole thing. He actually met my mother at his Christian academy. She had transferred there after being expelled from her previous institution for nearly weekly fights, and my father's school was the only one that would take her. According to him, though, she didn't show even an ounce of disrespect or rebellion during her time there. No fights, no truancy, hell, apparently she wouldn't even curse on school grounds. They met in his science class. She sat in the front row directly beside him, and I guess close proximity created affection between them. Thank God for science, right? She kept up the whole innocent schoolgirl routine all the way up through graduation. From there, the two of them married not even a full month after the ceremony, then boom, they have a me. I think that's where the strain really started. A child in your teens is not something that relaxes you, obviously. Father actually had to take up another job just to support us. What did mother do? She stayed home all day and watched over me. Well, I say watched over me. Really, all I remember from those days is her getting lost inside her books. The books she read looked ancient almost. Leather-bound, with wrinkled yellow pages, and no matter how often she read them, they seemed to always be covered in dust. Now, being the 5-year-old I was, I had no idea what she was doing. All I knew was that mother liked to read a lot. It wasn't until I hit 12 that my curiosity bubbled over and caused me to actually look at what she had been reading. She kept most of them hidden, locked away in her armoire and stuffed behind her clothes. It was almost fate that I stumbled upon them that day. It was late November, and of course, I just had to know what my gifts were going to be that year. Where better to check than the closet, right? I was disappointed when I found nothing but clothes and the scent of mothballs, but something told me to dig deeper, that I'd find exactly what I wanted if I just kept looking. That's when I found them. Books on black magic, demonology, and witchcraft. All manner of darkness. The air around me felt thick and heavy, like I was being watched, though I couldn't see by whom. As I stared at the books, still a little confused as to what I was even looking at, my heart fell into my stomach at the sound of the bedroom door opening. I clumsily hid away behind some of the clothes, and by some miracle of God, Mother didn't see me when she stepped into the closet. She must have been blinded by her need for the books, because her hand literally grazed my shoulder as she reached down to grab one. She shut the closet door behind her, leaving me alone in darkness as I waited. I could feel my heart beating out of my chest, and all I could do was wait for the perfect moment to escape. As I waited, Mother started to read aloud from the book. Her words made no sense to me, but I could feel the malice in her tone as she read. It sounded like gibberish, a language that was completely incomprehensible to me, but she was chanting it like she had done this 1,000 times. Suddenly, the light on the other side of the door began to glow brighter and brighter. The room shook, and with each passing second, the entire house got louder and louder with what sounded like thunder. Mother kept chanting, repeating the same foreign phrase over and over again. Through the noise, through the blinding light, she just kept chanting. On a dime, all of the noise stopped. The light on the other side of the door reached a peak before dying out entirely. For a moment, there was silence, deep, uncomfortable silence, until a new voice spoke, the unmistakable voice of a man. "This is the third time today," the man spoke. I could feel the bass of his voice in my chest as he continued. "Sooner or later, your husband is going to catch on. That idiot," my mother replied. "He's too busy working to even notice that his son looks nothing like him. Now are we going to do this or not?" I heard the sound of clothes hitting the floor before my parents' bed began to rattle violently. Faster and faster and faster, before slowing down to a soft, methodical rock, and then dying down completely as the smell of sulfur filled the room. "Wow," gasped my mother. "No wonder they call you the prince." "Oh, don't you worry, honey," responded the man. "Once that son of ours is 18, he'll be the prince, and you and I will rule for eternity." Yeah, I know. You have to have an heir before you're king. The rules down there are all so confusing. Anyway, you should go. We were so loud, he's probably going to come in here at any moment. Fine. With another flash of light and a roll of thunder, the room fell silent once again. I remained hidden in that closet for what felt like an eternity before my mother finally went off into the house to look for me. As sneaky as could be, I made my way to the bathroom, where I pretended to be sick so as not to draw suspicion. I never told Father about what I heard or what I saw. I just kept living like everything was normal. However, I'm writing this now because my 18th birthday is in 1 week, and I have no idea what's in store for the party. "So, what do you think?" the real estate agent asked. "I love the look of it," I declared. The house had a very rustic feel to it, even though it was in a densely populated district. "It has 4 bedrooms and 2 baths, and it is well within your budget," she said. I only heard half of what she said because I became distracted by the beautiful black and white cat that was grooming itself on the front porch. I love cats. I had 4 of my own. They were one of the reasons I was looking for a bigger place to live. "That's Rue," the agent revealed. "He comes with the house." "He does?" "The previous residents couldn't take him with them when they moved," she said. "That's so sad," I said as I approached Rue. "How come they couldn't take him?" While I waited for the agent to respond, I reached out to pet Rue. Instead of feeling his soft fur, I felt an intense freezing sensation on my fingers. When I looked down, I was shocked to see that my hand was passing through the cat's incorporeal body. "That's why they couldn't take him with them," the agent explained. In shock at realizing that Rue was a ghost, I just stood there and stared at him. This might be a good time to mention that Rue's owner, the previous resident's mother, also still resides in the house, the agent announced. "What?" I turned to face her. "Don't worry," she quickly replied. "She doesn't appear nearly as much as Rue does." (03/21/2025) I woke up today feeling discomfort in my throat. I have been coughing frequently and have a lot of phlegm. My family cannot even sleep because of the noise I am making. I do not even smoke, so what is going on? (03/2025) I was sleeping soundly last night, but I suddenly woke up coughing violently. What bad luck. (03/27/2025) My mother is very worried about me. She says her heart aches every time she hears me cough. She urged me to see a doctor, but I think I am fine. (04/01/2025) What an unforgettable April Fool's Day. I originally thought I would be fine if I just exercised more, but I actually coughed violently for nearly an hour after jogging. It felt terrible. Fine, I will go see a doctor tomorrow. (04/Dopshire tomorrow). (04/Dopshire 2025) I went to see the doctor today. His office is located in a basement within an industrial district. I found it quite eerie, but I do not want to go to a hospital because the healthcare system in this country is such a hassle. He pressed a freezing cold stethoscope against my chest and told me to breathe deeply so he could hear the sounds in my trachea. Then he prescribed me some medicine black granules that emit a bitter smell and a strange herbal fragrance. He also instructed me to come back for a follow-up if there is no improvement within 7 days. I hope I get better. I can still remember the icy touch of that stethoscope. Innie 4. 272725. I still feel like coughing. I went back to the office because the medicine did not work at all. The doctor did not seem surprised, as if he had expected me to return. He urged me to take the medicine for a few more days, and if it still does not work, I will have to stay at the clinic. Fine, I will do it only because I do not want my mother to lose any more sleep. W415 For some reason, the doctor looks very happy. While he was arranging a bed for me, I saw him browsing Reddit. His username is ICVeterinarian8725. Interesting. 04221-225. It has been a month since I fell ill. I thought staying at the clinic would help, but it has not. I am staying in an even deeper basement arranged by the doctor. I casually asked if there were any better accommodations, but to my surprise, he replied coldly, "This is where you people belong." What a weirdo. These past few days, I have been eating greasy takeout, getting injected with strange drugs, and even having my blood drawn. But he said, I will get better eventually. Fine. 042322232223. Something very disturbing happened today in the room next door. If you can even call it a ward. The person next door is a strange old man. He is emaciated with heavy dark circles under his eyes. Every time the doctor enters his room, he screams and begs for mercy. He told me I must leave here immediately and not to trust the treatment. He claims we are all going to die here. What should I do? AO4-24-25. That man told me he is actually not even 40 yet. I asked for his exact age, but he said he could not remember. He has been living here since he was a teenager. AO4-H25-2025. The person in the next room is dead. AO4-2025. The doctor fed me some medicine today. After taking it, I inexplicably called him Master. 310555-2022. Haha, I like it here. 4843-2502. I know why the person in the next room wanted me to leave. 3305, I want to leave. He is a demon. He cut off one of my arms today. And he's gonna cut off my leg tomorrow. 97 Neza1-225 Ophi. I'm gonna die. Yes, I'm gonna die. My mind is deteriorating. I no longer remember what year, month, or day it is. Both of my legs are gone now. That doctor, the one named ICVeterinarian8725, is sharpening his knife. He said he's gonna cut open my chest and take out my lungs to examine them. I finally know what his username means. He really is cold-blooded, and he never viewed me as a human being.